Introducing the Mise En Place Culture First podcast, where operational excellence begins and ends with you. Let's get started.
You know, there is this very specific, almost involuntary sigh of relief you experience when you walk up to a new restaurant.
Oh, absolutely.
Like maybe you're out of town or just trying a place you've never been to before, and right there, taped inside the front glass door, is a bright fluorescent letter A.
Right, or a placard with a perfect 100 printed on it.
Exactly. And we've all been, culturally conditioned to view that placard as this absolute impenetrable shield of safety.
It acts as a profound psychological anchor.
Yeah. You see that grade, and your brain instantly calculates, like, okay, this kitchen is spotless, the chefs are fastidious, and the food I'm about to eat is perfectly safe.
It's a heuristic. I mean, the dining public utilizes that single, highly visible letter to bypass complex risk assessments.
Right, because we don't have time to inspect the kitchen ourselves.
Exactly. The moment we perceive that we entirely outsource our critical judgment regarding sanitation, food sourcing, and biological hazards to whatever municipality issued that piece of paper.
But the deeper you look into the actual mechanics of those grading systems, the more that sense of security starts to feel like a carefully constructed mirage.
It really does.
Because what we are going to explore today is the very real possibility that the spotless restaurant with the A in the window might actually be a biological ticking time bomb.
Yes.
While the scuffed-up diner down the street with the B might actually be the safest place in town to eat.
That is often exactly the case.
So, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, in a special collaboration serving as the official introduction for the newest installment of the Mise En Place Culture First initiative, we are extracting the hidden truths from the 2022 FDA Food Code.
Along with a massive stack of local health department directives, right?
Right, exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. We are essentially going to decode this secret language of regulatory inspectors.
And for anyone who dines out, and critically, for anyone who operates within the hospitality industry, understanding this framework is, well, it's no longer optional.
No, not at all.
The regulatory ground is shifting dramatically right now. And I promise you, by the time we finish analyzing these documents today, your perception of a restaurant health grade is going to be fundamentally altered.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even just watching a celebrity chef taste a sauce on television, you're never going to see it the exact same way again.
Never.
So we have to start with this overarching concept that the sources refer to as the inspection illusion.
Right.
Because for decades, the way we graded restaurants was just deeply, deeply flawed. We operated on this deductive 100-point scale based on a binary system, right?
Yes, the old critical versus non-critical violation.
Exactly. And the problem with that older framework is that it allowed a kitchen to look aesthetically perfect to the average diner while completely failing at basic microbiology.
The historical context is so crucial here. In that older binary system, an inspector basically walked in with 100 points.
Right.
And every time they saw something wrong, whether it was a shattered floor tile or, a cook storing raw poultry directly on top of ready-to-eat salad greens, they simply subtracted points.
Wow. So they just dock you no matter what the issue was.
Right. And while some deductions were weighted a bit differently, the cumulative effect was that a restaurant could suffer a massive point loss for purely cosmetic or structural issues.
Things that have absolutely zero direct correlation to foodborne illness.
Exactly.
So under the newly adopted 2022 FDA Food Code, which states and municipalities are, actively rolling out nationwide, that old binary system is dead.
Yes, completely gone.
They tore it down to the studs. The sources show a pivot to a 3-tiered risk hierarchy: priority, priority foundation, and core.
Right.
And I really want to work through these because they fundamentally change what a health inspector is actually hunting for when they walk through those swinging kitchen doors.
They do. The entire regulatory paradigm has shifted away from cosmetic policing and toward the active interruption of microbial transmission chains.
Okay, let's examine the apex of that hierarchy then. Priority items.
Yeah.
These are designated with a P on modern inspection reports, right?
Yes. A priority provision is one whose absolute primary function is to directly eliminate, prevent, or reduce a foodborne illness hazard to an acceptable level.
So these are the biological smoking guns.
Precisely.
If I'm translating this into the reality of, a Friday night service, a priority violation, is an active threat to human health happening right in front of the inspector.
It is quantifiable immediate danger. We are talking about incorrect thermal holding, such as a batch of clam chowder sitting on a steam table at 115 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is bad, right?
It is the absolute perfect incubation temperature for aggressive bacterial growth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Or it's a line cook having direct bare hand contact with a hamburger bun just before plating it.
Right.
Or storing heavy-duty chemical degreasers on the exact same shelf as bulk flour.
That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
It is. And because the causal link to severe illness is so direct there, the FDA mandates that priority violations must be corrected immediately, on-site,
Yeah.
in the actual presence of the inspector.
No grace period.
Well, in exceedingly rare circumstances, they might grant a maximum of 72 hours, but the goal is the immediate neutralization of the threat.
Okay, so if priority is the immediate threat, then the second tier, Priority Foundation or PAC-F, makes logical sense as the operational infrastructure.
Yes, exactly.
Like, if a priority violation is the raw chicken juice actually dripping onto the lettuce, a priority foundation violation must be the broken shelf that allowed it to drip in the first place.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it.
Or, the fact that the kitchen doesn't even own a calibrated thermometer to check if the chicken is safe to begin with.
Right. Priority foundation items are the systems, the tools, and the training that actually enable compliance with priority items.
Because you can't prevent cross-contamination if the infrastructure is missing.
Exactly. Another prime example from the code is the hand washing station. Washing hands correctly to prevent fecal-oral transmission is a priority item.
Mm-hmm.
But the physical presence of soap, paper towels, and hot water at that dedicated sink, that is a priority foundation item.
Ah, I see. Because you can't do the priority action without the foundation tools?
Precisely. You also see this applied to management oversight. If the designated person in charge, the PIC, fails to actively enforce health policies among the staff, that failure in leadership is cited as a priority foundation violation.
Wow, they actually grade the leadership.
They do, and the code generally allows up to 10 calendar days for an establishment to rectify a PF violation, mainly because it often involves ordering supplies or, conducting staff training.
Which leaves us with the third tier, core items designated with a C.
Right.
And based on the regulatory text, this seems to be the catch-all category for the stuff that usually gross out a customer but won't actually make them sick.
Core items encompass general sanitation, facility upkeep, equipment design, and standard operating procedures.
So like the scuffed baseboards.
Yes, the scuffed baseboards. The dusty HVAC return vents. A missing piece of trim on a prep table. Or an employee wearing an apron that has flour spilled all over it.
Right, the stuff that might prompt someone to leave a bad Yelp review about the restaurant looking sort of dingy, even though a dusty air vent isn't going to give you salmonella.
Exactly. The FDA recognizes that while these items are important for the overall operational standard and, pest deterrence of a facility, they do not present an imminent biological threat.
Right.
Therefore, local authorities can allow an establishment up to 90 days to correct a core violation.
And this brings us to what the sources highlight as the math of danger.
Yes.
Because when you combine this highly specific three-tiered biological risk assessment with the traditional 100-point scoring systems that a lot of municipalities still mandate for public posting, you get a massive disconnect.
You really do.
I was doing the math on this while reading the regulatory framework, and I realized this is exactly why the A in the window is an illusion.
Walk us through how you see that disconnect manifesting on the actual inspection scores.
Okay, let's invent a hypothetical scenario based on the typical point deductions outlined in the sources.
Sure.
Let's take restaurant A. They're an older diner. Maybe they haven't remodeled in 20 years. The health inspector walks in and finds 12 separate core violations.
Okay, 12 core.
Yeah. The floors in the walk-in are gouged. A refrigerator door has a torn rubber gasket. 2 cooks are missing hair restraints. The grease trap area is just messy. And the dry storage room has some peeling paint.
12 distinct issues.
Right. In a standard deductive system, let's say a core violation costs 1 point, they lose 12 points. Their final score is an 88, which in many jurisdictions translates to a highly visible, slightly embarrassing B in the front window.
A very common scenario. The facility is fundamentally showing its age and struggling with aesthetic upkeep.
Now we look at Restaurant B. This is a brand new high-end bistro. The open kitchen features gleaming stainless steel and imported subway tile. The floors are spotless.
Sounds great so far.
Right. The inspector walks through and finds 0 structural issues. However, they observe 2 specific things. First, the sous chef is storing a tray of raw, marinating flank steak directly on the wire shelf above a hotel pan of prepped, ready-to-eat Caesar salad.
Oh, no!
Yeah. And second, the house-made garlic aioli on the prep line is temping at 55 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the required 41 degrees or below.
Both of those are severe priority violations. You have immediate cross-contamination potential and aggressive temperature abuse of a highly susceptible time temperature control for safety food.
Exactly. So the inspector docks them, let's say, 5 points for each priority violation. That's a 10-point deduction. Restaurant B scores a 90.
Right.
They proudly tape a glowing A in their front window. So you, the consumer walking down the street, you see Restaurant A with a B and Restaurant B with an A.
But mathematically,
Restaurant A is just messy. Restaurant B is actively cultivating pathogens that'll put a diner in the emergency room with a severe staph infection or Campylobacter.
the illusion is mathematically verified right there. The consumer is interpreting a metric of cosmetic compliance as a metric of biological safety.
Exactly.
And this is why the FDA's ongoing risk factor research is so critical and why they push states to adopt the new code. Epidemiological data consistently isolates 5 main causes of restaurant-linked illness outbreaks:
What are those 5 again?
improper holding temperatures, inadequate cooking, contaminated equipment, unsafe food sources, and poor personal hygiene.
Okay.
The new tiered system is laser-focused on those 5 vectors. The scoring systems that states use to translate those tiers into public letter grades are often lagging behind the science, which creates that exact dangerous discrepancy you just described.
It's totally like evaluating the safety of a driver, you know?
Oh, so?
Well, the old system, heavily weighted toward aesthetic core violations, was like failing someone on their driving test because their car hadn't been washed in a month and had muddy floor mats.
Right.
It doesn't look great, but it has absolutely no bearing on their ability to safely navigate an intersection. The new 3-tiered system recognizes that running a red light while texting, which would be a priority violation, is what actually causes the catastrophic crash.
Yeah.
Even if that driver is behind the wheel of a perfectly detailed, spotless luxury car, they are the lethal threat on the road.
That analogy cuts right to the heart of the regulatory shift. The FDA wants inspectors looking for the drivers running the red lights, not checking the floor mats.
Yeah.
And when you pivot the focus to those behavioral red lights, you invariably land on the single most unpredictable variable in any commercial kitchen:
The people.
the human element. You can install $250,000 worth of state-of-the-art computer-controlled combi ovens and heavy-duty chemical sanitation systems, and it is all rendered entirely useless if the human beings operating that equipment are acting as active biological transport mechanisms for pathogens.
Wow. Yeah. Which brings us deep into a really fascinating section of the Standardized Food Establishment Inspection Report that the sources highlight.
Yeah.
Good Hygienic Practices, or GHP. Specifically, items 6 and 7 under the risk factor interventions. The level of micromanagement over human bodily functions and habits here is staggering. But once you understand the microbiology, it makes total sense.
GHP is the ultimate biological firewall. It governs the personal habits, the attire, and the bodily controls required of food employees the moment they step onto the line.
Right.
The entire section is architected around preventing the transfer of extremely virulent pathogens, most notably norovirus, Staphylococcus aureus, and Salmonella, from the human body to the food supply.
Let's scrutinize item 6 first, because this is where a lot of industry veterans get tripped up. This item governs eating, drinking, and tobacco use in the kitchen.
Yes, the mandate is absolute.
No eating, no chewing gum, and no tobacco use, which the 2022 code now explicitly clarifies includes vapes and e-cigarettes, anywhere in a food preparation area, equipment storage area, or dishwashing zone.
That's right. If you need a break, you have to go to a physically separated designated area.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why is a vape pen such a huge deal?
We have to view this through the lens of saliva transfer. Human saliva is a remarkably efficient vehicle for staph and norovirus.
Oh, gross.
When an employee takes a bite of a sandwich, chews gum, or takes a drag from a vape pen, their fingers are making contact with their lips, their mouth, or the aerosolized saliva particles generated by exhaling.
Right.
If that same employee then turns around and grabs a chef's knife or plates a garnish, the transmission chain is instantly complete. The pathogen has moved from their respiratory tract to your plate.
There is, however, one very specific operational exception that anyone who has ever worked a 10-hour shift over a 500-degree grill knows is absolutely vital for survival. the beverage exception.
Yes.
You are allowed to hydrate on the line, but the code essentially demands an engineering solution for your cup.
Hydration is a physiological necessity, especially in Category R kitchens where ambient temperatures can soar. But the beverage is only permitted if it is contained within a closed vessel and handled in a manner that prevents hand contamination.
You cannot simply leave an open soda can or a wide-mouth coffee mug on a prep table.
Because if you knock it over, it spills directly into the food.
Right, so the code requires a lid and a straw, or a specialized flip-top mechanism where the hand never touches the drinking surface.
Furthermore, the placement of that container is heavily regulated. It must be stored below exposed food and clean equipment on a non-food contact surface.
Makes sense.
The structural engineering of the cup and its spatial relationship to the food must guarantee that if a catastrophic spill occurs, the liquid falls harmlessly to the floor, not into a hotel pan of sliced tomatoes.
But what about the chefs themselves? I mean, if I am a chef making a massive 50-gallon tilt skillet of marinara sauce, I have to taste it to adjust the seasoning, right? I can't just guess.
No, of course not.
So how does the health code reconcile the culinary necessity of tasting with a strict prohibition against saliva transfer?
The code outlines a highly specific pasting protocol, and inspectors watch this like hawks. Yes, the chef must utilize a single-use utensil. They take a clean, sanitized spoon, extract a small portion of the product, step entirely away from the bulk container, and taste it.
Sure.
The absolute non-negotiable rule is that once that utensil makes contact with the chef's mouth, it is biologically compromised. It must be immediately deposited into the dish pit for a full thermal and chemical sanitizing cycle. Or, if it's plastic, thrown straight in the trash.
So it's the ultimate ban on double dipping.
It is an immediate priority violation to rebip. Imagine the microbiology of that 50-gallon vat of marinara.
Oh boy.
If a chef tastes the sauce and uses the same spoon to adjust the seasoning and stir the pot again, they have just introduced millions of colony-forming units of their own oral flora into a bulk product.
Yep.
And that product might then be cooled down overnight, passing slowly through the danger zone, providing the perfect incubation environment for the bacteria the chef just introduced. By the next day, that sauce is a biological weapon.
That is a terrifying yet completely logical explanation.
It really paints a picture.
Which transitions us perfectly into item 7, bodily discharge. Because tasting the food is a choice. Vaping is a choice. But what happens when the biological threat isn't a choice?
Right.
What happens when a line cook is just trying to pay their rent and tries to power through a Friday night shift with a terrible cold?
Item 7 addresses the involuntary expulsion of fluids. The regulation states that any employee experiencing persistent coughing, sneezing, or a runny nose with visible discharge from their eyes, nose, or mouth is strictly prohibited from working with exposed food, clean equipment, or clean utensils.
Which places a massive, almost medical burden on the person in charge. The PIC isn't just balancing labor costs and ticket times anymore. They are now acting as a frontline epidemiologist.
That is precisely the legal expectation. The PIC is mandated to conduct active daily wellness evaluations.
So if someone shows up sick,
If a prep cook arrives for their shift exhibiting a persistent wet cough, the PIC is legally obligated to intervene. They must either reassign that employee to a non-food handling task, perhaps deep cleaning the loading dock, or doing administrative inventory in the back office, or, if the symptoms are severe enough, restrict or exclude them from the facility entirely until they are medically cleared.
the old culture of, sweating out a fever on the grill is fundamentally incompatible with the modern food code.
It is entirely incompatible because, as we established earlier, norovirus does not spontaneously generate on a cutting board.
Right?
It requires a host. It arrives via aerosolized respiratory droplets from a sneeze or from hands contaminated by wiping a runny nose.
The code even drills down into personal attire. And there's one detail in the sources that really caught my attention regarding jewelry.
Yeah.
Outer clothing has to be clean. Hair has to be restrained with nets or hats or beard guards. We know all that. But the rules on jewelry are incredibly unforgiving.
Very much so.
The code dictates that a plain, smooth wedding band is the only piece of jewelry permitted on the hands and arms of a food handler. No watches, no medical alert bracelets, no intricate diamond engagement rings.
Think about the physical architecture of complex jewelry. Consider a diamond engagement ring with a complex platinum setting and multiple prongs.
It's basically a microscopic coral reef for bacteria.
That is a brilliant analogy. It is exactly a microscopic coral reef. Those tiny crevices, the spaces beneath the gemstone, the links of a watch band, They create deep, protected harbors where organic matter, grease, and moisture accumulate.
And you can't just wash that out easily.
No, when an employee washes their hands for the required 20 seconds, the mechanical friction in soapy water simply cannot penetrate those crevices effectively. The bacteria are completely shielded.
Wow.
Furthermore, there is the physical hazard of a gemstone dislodging and falling into a commercial mixer. A plain, smooth wedding band is the sole exception because it lacks that architectural complexity. It can be thoroughly washed alongside the skin.
But let me push back on this for a second. On behalf of the skeptical listener,
Go for it.
we are analyzing these rules in a vacuum. But in the chaotic reality of a commercial kitchen turning over 300 covers on a Saturday night, is a state health inspector really going to drop the hammer on a kitchen just because a busboy forgot to take off his Apple Watch? Or because a line cook took a sip from an open Diet Coke can on the back prep table?
The short answer is absolutely, unequivocally yes.
Yeah.
And the penalties are mathematically brutal.
Really?
The sources detail how enforcement operates in states utilizing the 100-point deductive model, such as Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and Illinois. Because good hygienic practices fall under the risk factors and interventions category, rather than just basic retail operations, they carry the highest possible penalty weights.
So it's not just a gentle warning from the inspector.
Far from it. If an inspector observes a sous chef wiping their nose and returning to a cutting board without washing their hands, or spots an open, half-empty energy drink sitting next to the slicer, that is immediately cited as a priority or priority foundation violation. Wow.
In a standard 100-point jurisdiction, that single visual observation triggers an immediate deduction of 3 to 5 points. In states with even stricter enforcement metrics, like certain counties in Illinois or Georgia, a severe GHP violation can result in a 4 to 9 point penalty.
That is massive. One open soda can instantly drop your restaurant from an A to a B, regardless of how clean the floors are.
Exactly. And the inspector will demand a corrected on-site action, abbreviated as COS.
Wait, what does that look like during service?
The inspection essentially halts. The PIC must physically intervene, force the employee to discard the beverage, sanitize the affected prep surface, and mandate a full hand-washing cycle right in front of the inspector before the audit even continues.
Talk us stopping traffic.
Moreover, if the facility has a documented history of repeat GHP violations, the local health authority can escalate the penalty, doubling the point deductions or forcing the permit holder into a mandatory administrative hearing to justify why their license shouldn't be suspended. It fundamentally reframes what a health inspection actually is. It's not an audit of the facility's cleaning schedule. It's an audit of human behavioral compliance.
Precisely.
But human hygiene isn't the only thing the 2022 FDA Food Code overhauled. The sources outline a series of fundamental operational shifts that are rippling across the industry right now, as states like Illinois move to adopt them by 2025 and places like Oregon by 2026.
The 2022 updates are remarkable because they address both complex microbiology and the psychology of the workforce. They represent a significant maturation of the regulatory science.
Okay, let's analyze the most surprising one first. The water temperature at the hand-washing sink.
This one always surprises people.
For years, the gold standard was that hand-washing sinks had to deliver water at a minimum of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. But the 2022 code actually lowered that mandate down to 85 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's right.
When I first read this, it felt entirely counterintuitive. Doesn't hotter water kill more bacteria? I always assumed the water needed to be as hot as you could physically tolerate to sterilize your hands.
That is perhaps the most deeply entrenched myth in both commercial and domestic food safety.
Really?
The reality of thermal destruction is that water hot enough to instantaneously kill virulent bacteria on contact would cause third-degree burns and severely scald human tissue. We are talking about temperatures approaching the boiling point.
So the heat of the tap water was never actually killing the germs in the first place?
Never. The efficacy of hand washing relies on 3 distinct, interdependent mechanisms.
Okay, what are they?
First, the chemical action of the soap, specifically the surfactants that break down the lipid envelopes protecting the bacteria and viruses. Second, the mechanical friction generated by vigorously scrubbing the hands together for a minimum of 20 seconds, which physically dislodges the pathogens from the skin.
And the third?
The sheer volume of flushing water that washes those dislodged pathogens down the drain.
So if the heat isn't killing the germs, why did they specifically choose 85 degrees for the new standard?
It was an intervention based purely on behavioral economics and human psychology. When the legal requirement was 100 degrees, the water was often uncomfortably hot, bordering on painful, especially for employees who had to wash their hands 30 or 40 times a shift.
Yeah, that would wreck your hands.
And what is the natural human reaction to painful stimuli? Avoidance. Workers would cut the 20-second scrub short, or worse, they would bypass the sink entirely.
Oh, wow. So they just wouldn't wash them.
Right. By lowering the mandate to 85 degrees, the water is lukewarm. It is physically comfortable. The FDA realized that comfortable water actually increases the frequency and duration of compliance. Employees will actually wash for the full 20 seconds, which allows the soap and friction to do the actual work of rendering the hands biologically safe.
That is a phenomenal example of designing a regulation around human reality rather than abstract theory.
It really is.
Let's move to the next major update, which deals with allergen awareness. The 2022 code officially recognizes sesame as the 9th major food allergen. But the operational burden here is specifically targeted at bulk food dispensers.
Yes. The regulatory focus here is on uncontrolled microenvironments.
Like what?
Think of the self-serve cereal dispensers in a university cafeteria dining hall, or a trail mix bin at a hotel breakfast buffet. Under the updated code, it is no longer sufficient to just place the food out.
Right.
Any bulk food dispenser must now feature a highly visible, explicitly clear labeling system, whether it's a dedicated sticker, a magnetic placard, or a prominent wall poster that distinctly identifies any of the 9 major allergens present in that bulk item.
Why are they targeting bulk bins so aggressively, though? Is the risk of cross-contamination really that much higher?
Infinitely higher. Consider a college freshman with a severe anaphylactic sesame or tree nut allergy navigating a busy dining hall. They are making life or death decisions based almost entirely on visual cues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If a granola mix containing almond dust is dumped into a generic, clear plastic cylinder with a label that simply reads "Healthy Crunch," that dispenser is a lethal hazard. The potential for cross-contact in these self-serve areas where a customer might use the same scoop for the nut-free cereal and the almond granola is astronomical.
And the staff has to know about this now, too, right?
Yes. Furthermore, the code now legally mandates that the person in charge train the staff to effectively communicate allergen information. The days of a server shrugging and saying, "I'm pretty sure there's no sesame in the sauce," are over. Ignorance is now a citation.
Okay, here is an update that feels like it closes a massive legal loophole: manufacturer cooking instructions.
Ah, yes.
The rule states that if a commercially packaged food comes with specific cooking instructions from the manufacturer, those instructions must be followed precisely before that food can be offered as ready to eat. The sources use the example of frozen vegetables.
It is a classic loophole, and the frozen pea scenario on a salad bar perfectly illustrates the danger.
Let's unpack that.
Historically, a prep cook might take a 20-pound bag of commercial frozen peas, run them under cold water in a colander until they thaw, and then immediately place them onto the iced salad bar for service.
Which, on the surface, seems entirely benign. They're just vegetables, they were frozen, now they are thawed.
But it ignores the industrial supply chain. If the commercial processing facility that packaged those peas explicitly printed "cook thoroughly" to 165 degrees on the bag, they did so because their processing method did not include a final microbiological kill step.
Oh, wow. So they might already be contaminated.
The processor is relying on the end user, the restaurant, to apply that thermal kill step to eliminate any listeria or salmonella introduced during the harvesting and freezing process. By just thawing the peas and serving them raw, the restaurant was bypassing the only mechanism designed to make the food safe.
That's terrifying.
The FDA has now firmly closed that loophole. If the bag says cook, you must cook it and then properly cool it down before it ever touches the salad bar.
We also see a significant shift in the regulatory lexicon. Some terminology has been completely rewritten. Potentially hazardous food, the old acronym PHF, is now officially designated as Time Temperature Control for Safety, or TCS food.
It is a much more precise, scientifically accurate nomenclature. Calling a raw potato a hazardous food sounds inherently alarmist.
It does.
The new term, TCS, correctly shifts the emphasis away from the food itself and onto the specific operational variables, time and temperature, that the kitchen must control to prevent that food from becoming dangerous.
Similarly, the old Qualified Food Operator, or QFO, is now the Certified Food Protection Manager, the CFPM.
Again, it emphasizes active, continuous management of biological risks, rather than just holding a passive certification card in your wallet.
Let's deeply analyze a few of the rapid-fire rule changes listed in the sources, because they each reveal a lot about the changing landscape of commercial kitchens. First, monitoring the thawing process of TCS foods has been escalated from a core violation to a priority foundation violation. Why the massive jump in severity?
Because improper thawing is a silent amplifier of bacteria.
How so?
If a kitchen leaves a 10-pound block of frozen ground beef in a prep sink at room temperature for 12 hours, the center of that block might still be frozen solid, but the outer inch of that meat has reached 70 degrees.
Oh, I see.
It has been sitting in the bacterial danger zone for hours, rapidly multiplying pathogens. By elevating this to a priority foundation tier, the FDA is forcing the PIC to implement a foundational system like continuous cold water running or monitored refrigeration thawing to ensure the thermal journey of that food remains controlled.
We also see latex gloves being outright banned in several jurisdictions under the new code, forcing a hard pivot to nitrile or vinyl.
The latex ban addresses a dual threat. First, the friction of kneading dough or mixing salads can cause microscopic latex proteins to transfer directly into the food supply, triggering severe allergic reactions in unsuspecting customers.
Wow.
Second, the prolonged daily use of latex by the food handlers themselves was leading to massive rates of occupational contact dermatitis and sensitization. Nitrile and vinyl eliminate both vectors entirely.
Then there are the chemical vegetable washes. The code now requires kitchens utilizing these chemicals to maintain highly specific on-site test kits to verify the concentration levels.
Think about the chemistry of a vegetable wash basin. As you continuously submerge heads of lettuce or batches of tomatoes into a sanitizing solution, the organic load, the dirt, the cellular debris from the vegetables rapidly depletes the active chemical agent.
So it basically stops working.
If you don't test the concentration every few hours, what started as a sterilizing bath becomes a contaminated pool of water that is actively cross-contaminating every new batch of vegetables you put into it. The test kit proves the chemical barrier is still functional.
And finally, a rule change that reflects modern cultural shifts. Pet dogs.
Thus, the dog patio rule.
With explicit regulatory approval, pet dogs are now formally permitted in outdoor dining areas and patios.
It is an acknowledgement of how people want to dine, but the FDA wrapped it in a very tight biological firewall. The establishment must submit written, standardized operating procedures for handling canine waste.
Of course.
Furthermore, the dogs are strictly prohibited from making any physical contact with restaurant furniture, chairs, or tableware. It is a compromise between hospitality trends and sanitation rigor.
So when we look at the totality of this updated code, it is incredibly dense. I mean, it demands absolute precision regarding thermodynamics, biochemistry, and human resource management.
It really does.
And this raises a massive logistical question. How on earth does a local health department enforce this uniformly? Because a sprawling hotel convention center executing a plated dinner for 1,000 guests cannot possibly be evaluated using the exact same matrix as a guy selling hot dogs from a pushcart on the corner.
And they aren't. The FDA food code is a comprehensive model, but it is ultimately a template. It relies on the individual state and municipal agencies to build their own administrative bureaucracies around it.
Right.
To manage the vast disparity between a banquet hall and a hot dog cart, health departments utilize a system of facility risk classifications.
I was reading through the Illinois model for this, which the sources highlight, and it really struck me that the local government isn't actually grading the type of cuisine being served. They're grading the thermal journey of the food. Every time the kitchen raises or lowers the temperature of an ingredient, the risk multiplies.
That is a phenomenal insight. The thermal journey. That is exactly what dictates the regulatory burden. Let's examine how Illinois categorizes that journey, starting at the peak of the pyramid, Category I, the high-risk classification.
This sounds like the culinary tightropes. What defines a Category I facility?
Category I facilities engage in highly complex, multi-step food preparation. They are taking raw ingredients, let's say whole chickens, cooking them to 165 degrees, cooling them down in an ice bath to below 41 degrees for overnight storage in the walk-in, and then the next day reheating that chicken to 165 degrees to be held hot on a buffet line at 135 degrees.
They are crossing through the bacterial danger zone over and over and over again.
Precisely. Every thermal transition is an opportunity for catastrophic biological failure. Because the operational calculus is so complex, Category I facilities face the strictest oversight.
Makes total sense.
They are legally required to have a fully credentialed certified food protection manager on site during all hours of operation. This category also automatically includes any facilities serving highly susceptible populations, regardless of their menu, so hospital cafeterias, nursing homes, and daycare centers are permanently locked into Category 1.
Then we step down to Category 2, the medium risk classification.
In a Category 2 facility, the thermal journey is dramatically shortened. The vast majority of their products are prepped, cooked, and served almost immediately to the consumer. A classic made-to-order burger diner or a fast casual sandwich shop fits here.
Okay, so less cooling and reheating.
Right. They might have some limited hot holding, like a soup of the day, but they are not executing the massive multi-day cooling and reheating processes of a Category I kitchen.
And finally, Category 3, minimal risk. I equate this to heating up a frozen dinner in your microwave at home. It's incredibly low risk and highly predictable.
It is the lowest tier of regulatory scrutiny. Category 3 operations essentially deal only with commercially prepackaged TCS foods, like a gas station selling factory-sealed sandwiches that just go into a warmer Raleigh rum. Or they serve non-hazardous snack foods and beverages. There is absolutely no complex assembly or hot holding of raw ingredients.
And the regulatory burden is significantly lighter to match that lower risk.
Drastically lighter. A Category 3 facility usually does not require a salaried certified food protection manager. Basic food handlers' safety cards for the staff are deemed sufficient. In many jurisdictions, they can even apply for a variance to be exempt from installing a commercial grease trap because they aren't generating the heavy fats and oils associated with cooking raw proteins.
But there's a fascinating caveat in the sources. A local health authority retains the absolute right to unilaterally upgrade or downgrade a facility's classification based on their historical inspection performance.
Oh, yes.
So if that Category 2 burger diner develops a habit of failing to hold their cheese at the right temperature, the health department can force them into Category Oversight bracket. It's a punitive escalation to force compliance.
It is dynamic regulation. They adjust the bureaucratic pressure based on observed behavior. Now, to truly understand how these administrative categories translate into the actual letters and numbers you see on the front door, we have to look at a specific local implementation.
Like Yarmouth.
Yes, the sources provide a highly detailed breakdown of the enforcement mechanics in the town of Yarmouth, Massachusetts.
Yarmouth is a fascinating case study in administrative pressure. In 2017, they implemented a strict letter grading program designed with 3 specific goals: inform the public, improve sanitary baseline conditions, and reduce foodborne illness.
Right.
They operate on a 100-point scale, and they deduct 5 points for what they term critical violations, which align directly with the FDA's priority tier, and 2 points for non-critical or core violations.
And their grading brackets leave virtually no room for error. An A requires a score of 90 to 100. A B is an 80 to 89, and a C is anything below a 79.
But it's what happens after the grade is issued that makes the Yarmouth model so intense. If a restaurant scores below an 80, meaning they earn a C, it instantly triggers a mandatory reinspection within 10 business days. You don't just get to hang the C up, apologize to your customers, and go back to business as usual.
The regulatory noose tightens immediately. 10 days is barely enough time to schedule a commercial plumber or retrain an entire kitchen staff. The pressure on the permit holder is immense.
Yeah, that's stressful.
And if that initial inspection score falls below a 70, the bureaucratic consequences escalate from a warning to an existential threat to the business.
Below 70 triggers a Board of Health hearing.
Yes. The owner or the designated legal representative of the restaurant is legally compelled to appear before the Municipal Board of Health. At that hearing, they must publicly justify why their operation is failing so catastrophically. The board wields the ultimate authority. They can mandate severe operational conditions, suspend the facility's food service license temporarily, or revoke it permanently.
What if a restaurant scores an 85, like a solid middle-of-the-road B?
Under Yarmouth's specific bylaws, an establishment scoring between 80 and 89 is permitted to request exactly 1 educational reinspection per calendar year, which must be conducted within 10 days in an attempt to earn their A back.
Okay, so a grace period.
It is a grace period for the highly motivated. However, if you score below an 80, you forfeit that right. You cannot request a second reinspection within that year. You are forced to live with the economic and reputational consequences of that C grade.
It is an incredibly potent mixture of educational outreach and punitive market action. But even with all these points and re-inspections, the sources detail a scenario that bypasses the grading system entirely, the imminent health hazard.
The worst case scenario.
Right. Because as we discussed earlier, failing to set mousetraps might just be a priority foundation violation. But what happens when the inspector shines a flashlight under the dish machine and sees a live infestation?
That is the regulatory kill switch. When an inspector encounters an imminent health hazard, the mathematical point system ceases to matter entirely. Section 8404.11 of the Food Code defines an imminent hazard as a significant threat or danger to public health that requires immediate correction or cessation of operation to prevent injury.
We're talking about the nightmare scenarios. A massive raw sewage backup flooding the kitchen floor, a total loss of electrical power rendering all the walk-in coolers useless, a lack of potable running water, a fire, or an active visible infestation of rodents or cockroaches on the prep surfaces.
If any of those conditions exist, the permit holder is legally mandated to immediately cease all food operations and notify the health authority. The inspector will shut the facility down on the spot.
Right then and there.
It does not matter if they had a perfect 100 score 10 minutes prior. The biological integrity of the facility has been fundamentally breached. They cannot legally reopen until the hazard is completely eradicated and the health department formally approves the remediation.
When you look at the totality of these systems, the imminent hazard shutdowns, the Yarmouth 10-day reinspection windows, the point deductions for a cook's Apple Watch, it reveals the true philosophy behind public posting. Whether it's the famous letter grades in New York City or Los Angeles or Yarmouth posting their inspection PDFs online, it relies on a concept called condition points.
Explain how you interpret the leverage of condition points in this context.
It's the realization that municipal fines are largely ineffective against well-funded restaurants. I mean, a $1,000 fine for a dirty kitchen is just written off as a cost of doing business.
Absolutely.
But forcing a restaurateur to permanently affix a fluorescent C to their front door, that is market-driven regulation. It weaponizes consumer disgust. The health department is leveraging the economic impact of lost foot traffic to force the owner to actually care about the thermal journey of their chicken.
It is brilliant administrative leverage. The regulatory agency doesn't need to be there every day if the dining public is essentially enforcing the financial penalty for them.
Which brings us full circle back to where this entire deep dive began. That glowing, reassuring letter A in the window. After analyzing the 2022 FDA Food Code, the priority tiers, and the biology of human hygiene, I don't think I could ever look at one of those placards with the same blind faith again.
I want to leave you with a final, perhaps slightly uncomfortable thought to mull over. We have established mathematically and procedurally that the health score in the window only reflects a single 2 to 3 hour snapshot in time. We also know that human behavior, what the kitchen staff does when they are stressed, rush, and assume no one is watching, is the primary vector for introducing virulent pathogens into the food supply.
So the true variable isn't the code, it's the culture.
Exactly. How do we accurately evaluate a restaurant's true culture of safety? Because the most accurate indicator of a biologically safe kitchen is never going to be a laminated A hanging in the window. The true indicator is how that prep cook handles a raw chicken, how the PIC enforces the hand-washing protocol, and how the entire operational system functions on a chaotic Saturday night when the health inspector is absolutely nowhere to be found.
It fundamentally comes down to culture over mere compliance. You have to build a team that respects the biology of the food as much as the flavor. And exploring how to build that exact type of resilient, safety-first organizational framework is precisely what the Mise En Place Culture First initiative is all about.
It's crucial work.
It really is. We want to take a moment to explicitly thank the partners that make this level of deep analysis possible. First, a massive thank you to HRB Universal. When we talk about the immense burden on a certified food protection manager to understand these complex regulatory shifts, HRB Universal is the solution.
They absolutely are.
Their dedication to delivering high-caliber educational resources, robust compliance tools, and elite professional development programs for the hospitality sector is truly unmatched. If you are operating anywhere in the hotel, restaurant, and bar industry, do not wait until your operation is facing a 10-day mandatory reinspection, or your cash flow gets too tight due to a downgraded health score. Get ahead of the regulatory curve.
Very important advice.
You can contact them for comprehensive training and consulting needs by visiting hrbuni.com, searching HRB Universal online, and be sure to download their mobile web app directly at hrbuni.com/AthleteDayPP.
We also proudly recognize the Plate and Pour Collective Equity Partner Program. As we discuss the intense financial and operational pressures of maintaining these high standards, we have to acknowledge that access to capital and mentorship is not always equal. The Plate and Pour Collective is a visionary initiative fostering equitable growth, shared prosperity, and deep financial mentorship within the industry.
Right, such a great program.
They are actively removing systemic barriers and providing emerging culinary entrepreneurs with the strategic capital they need to build kitchens that are both innovative and relentlessly safe. You can explore and access their programs directly through the HRB Universal Portal.
We highly encourage everyone to subscribe and listen to the full Mise En Place Culture First discussions for advanced operational strategies, organizational culture frameworks, and more deep dives exactly like this one. We are available seamlessly across all your preferred platforms. For audio, you can stream us right now at miseinplaceculturefirst.com, hrbuni.com, Riverside, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, and Deezer.
And if you prefer a visual medium, you can stream our flagship video series, From Kitchen to C-Suite, exclusively on the HRB Network app, which is readily available to download on both Roku and Amazon Fire TV.
So the next time you walk up to your favorite restaurant and you see that grate in the window, don't just accept the illusion. Look a little deeper and appreciate the immense biological tightrope being walked just behind those swinging kitchen doors. Until next time, stay focused, continue to innovate, and remain relentless in your pursuit of excellence.